What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90, and my oh my, what a week we have in store for you. It is time for week 36 of the Premier League predictions, and first of all, massive shout out to all of you. Once again, we broke the all-time like record on this channel, I'm pretty sure, on the last video, smashing 200 likes. So please drop down below and just tap the like button for me. Let's try and break another record on this video for the week 36 Premier League predictions. And I want to give a shout out to Tom Wells, who left his predictions on the previous video and correctly predicted Bournemouth to beat Leicester and Sheffield United to beat Chelsea. They did also predict Arsenal to beat Tottenham, but we don't need to talk about that. Now, I know I said in the previous video that if you predict an upset in the Premier League, then you'll probably get your comment featured like Tom Wells did today. But I saw a lot of you editing your comments. I was looking through the comments to see who predicted Bournemouth to beat Leicester, and Tom Wells was the only person I could find that did that without editing their comment. So if you edit your comment, I'm going to have to null and void it in terms of being featured, because you probably edited it after the results came in, and that's not what the prediction show is all about, because if I could edit my predictions, I would have changed a few from week 35. Now, with that being said, if you want to get your comment featured on the next episode, then drop your predictions down in the comments below, and if you do predict an upset without editing your comment, I'll have a better chance of picking your comment to be featured in the next video. But now, without further ado, let's take a little look back at week 35 and see how I did. Probably my worst week since the restart. There are a few good ones in there, but a lot of upsets as well. Kicking it off, we had Norwich versus West Ham. I did predict the away win for West Ham. I went for a 2-1, and West Ham, the Antonio show, running away with a 4-0 win. Next up was Watford versus Newcastle. I predicted a 1-1 draw, thinking Newcastle have been looking okay lately, but it ended up being a 2-1 win to Watford, with Danny Welbeck scoring an overhead kick. I mean, wow, I never thought I'd see that, to be honest. And after that, we had Liverpool up against Burnley. I predicted a simple 3-0 win. Burnley showing their resolve, being the first team to not lose at Anfield in a couple of years, I think, with a 1-1 draw, which is pretty well done, pretty impressive for Burnley. Next up, Sheffield United up against Chelsea. I predicted a 2-1 away win. I really got to start back in the blades a little bit more, and Sheffield United won 3-0, so congratulations to them. Brighton, Man City, I predicted a 4-0 away win. I was very close. It was a 5-0 away win. Wolves and Everton, I predicted a 1-1 draw. Should have backed Wolves' home form. 3-0 to Wolves. Aston Villa, Palace. I changed my prediction in the video to back Aston Villa for the win. I said 2-1 to Villa. They won 2-0. If Palace's goal wasn't disallowed, it would have been 2-1. We would have been exactly right. Next up, Tottenham versus Arsenal. I predicted a close, high-scoring affair. I predicted a 2-2 draw, and it was a 2-1 win to Spurs, so the less said about that, the better. Bournemouth, Leicester. Predicted Bournemouth would get on the score sheet. Didn't predict it would be 4 times. I predicted a 2-1 away win to Leicester, and Bournemouth taking all 3 points with a 4-1 win, which means that, you know, there's still a chance that they could still be in the Premier League if they can keep up performances like that. You never know. And then Manchester United versus Southampton. I predicted a 3-2 win to Manchester United, and at the time of posting this and recording this, they haven't yet played, so we don't know the results to that one. But there are Premier League fixtures every day this week, at least Monday to Friday. I'm not sure about following that, but there's a lot of fixtures, so I don't know the Man United result at the time of recording or posting, but you guys will eventually know. So now we move on to week 36. Kicking it off, we have Chelsea up against Norwich. Norwich obviously have officially been relegated from the Premier League, and Chelsea have it all to play for, chasing the Champions League spots thanks to Leicester dropping points against Bournemouth. Chelsea will be loving that very much, and they will want to ensure that they get the 3 points here. And you know what? I'm going to change my prediction once again. I had it going 3-0 to Chelsea. I'm going to go for back-to-back 4-0 defeats for Norwich. I think Chelsea are going to bang in some goals in this fixture. 4-0. Now, coming up after that, we have Burnley up against Wolves. Burnley, one of the form teams of the Premier League. It's never high scoring. It's never that entertaining, but it is solid. And Wolves coming off of a very good 3-0 win against Everton. I can't separate these two teams. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Classic Burnley score. Classic Wolves score. I'm going to go for, yes, the 1-1. Now, Manchester City up against Bournemouth coming next. Bournemouth looking, well, there's a small chance, as I said, for them to still be in the Premier League. Still the favourites to be relegated, along with Aston Villa, I believe. But, you know, what a fantastic result that was against Leicester. Now, Bournemouth, they could get something from this game, because in my opinion, Manchester City will be resting a few players for the FA Cup. Similar to how they rested players against Southampton, and the only reason I can think of that is that they thought they would win easily and they were resting for the FA Cup. But then again, they played a full-strength team against Newcastle and Brighton and scored 5 goals in both games. So you never know. That's why Manchester City is such a hard team to predict. I do think City will rest players for the FA Cup, with it being an impending fixture only a few days after. But I think they'll be good enough to get a 3-0 win against Bournemouth. I did originally predict 6-0, but then when I realised that the FA Cup was right around the corner, I changed it down to a 3-0. But if Bournemouth are sensible and they play with a solid defence, it's going to be tough. But if Man City don't play a full-strength team, I could see Bournemouth bagging a goal. And you know what? I'm going to say that. We'll change it to a 3-1 win to Manchester City. Bournemouth need to score. They need to get the dubs. So, yeah, we'll go with a 3-1 win to Manchester City nonetheless. Now, after that, we have Newcastle up against Tottenham. A huge result for Tottenham in the North London derby. Arsenal looking like the more threatening team. Both teams hitting the woodwork. And then Tottenham getting the pretty late winner with Alderweireld. I don't know how to say his name. Alderweireld. Alderweireld. There's so many ways to say it, I don't know. But yes, Tottenham will be lifted by that, finally getting a win, even if it wasn't in the most convincing fashion. And Newcastle falling prey to the Watford comeback. So I think Tottenham are just going to get a win. Games between Newcastle and Tottenham are quite low scoring, and Newcastle do have very, very good home form. So maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but Tottenham, they have a little bit more to play for. Having beaten Arsenal, they'll still think maybe they could get in some sort of European spot. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win to Spurs. But then again, it could be a draw. Newcastle could easily win. You know what? Shock result. Let's do it. Let's flip it on its head. We're flipping it on its head. Well, I never really predict shock results, and I think, you know what? I never get 10 out of 10 correct results, so something's got to give. Something's got to be a shock. We'll go for 2-1 to Newcastle in this fixture. Come on, the Magpies, you got this. Now, kicking it off after that, we have Arsenal up against Liverpool, and I don't see this going well for Arsenal. I think Arsenal, they're in a really good run of form, but then after dropping points to Leicester and then losing to Spurs, I don't think Liverpool is the team they're going to want to be playing next. And obviously, Liverpool, they did drop points to Burnley, but I think Liverpool they're chasing 100 points, and I think they're going to get it. But then again, what if it's another upset? What if Arsenal do? You know what? Let's do it. Let's change the score again. I'm having a wild one today. I originally had 3-1 away to Liverpool as the prediction. I've taken one of their goals, given it to Arsenal. Arsenal have more to play for. They're at home. You got to back them to get a draw. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. This episode's been wild. I'm talking myself out of my old predictions, and I love it. Maybe this week we'll do better than last week, because you can't really do much worse than last week. Now, after this, we have Everton up against Aston Villa. Everton not looking that great. Aston Villa, huge win over Crystal Palace, but it is at Goodison Park. Everton, they do like playing at Goodison Park, and Aston Villa, I can't see them beating Everton. I'm going to stick with my guns on this one. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the home side. I did predict Aston Villa to win last week, and they did, and I think the run ends here. Now, coming up, we have a huge fixture. It's Leicester up against Sheffield United. Sheffield United soundly beating Chelsea, tactically just outplaying them, which is fantastic. And then Leicester just losing to Bournemouth in a very crazy fashion. I can't believe they lost by 4-1. It was just absolutely just crazy. And Soyuncu will obviously not be playing because he got red carded, so that's a worry for Leicester. Jamie Vardy is still scoring goals, so that's good for them, but Sheffield United are a tough nut to crack and do have pretty good away form. As a result, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Now, typically at the King Power Stadium, I back Leicester to beat most teams. I think they're good going forward, but there's been some question marks hanging over their heads lately, and I think Sheffield United have shown that they are a team that can get a result, so I'm going to go for the 1-1 draw. Next up, we have Crystal Palace up against Manchester United. Palace losing 2-0 to Aston Villa, and Manchester United, we don't know the result against Southampton, but I assume with how much they need a win, Manchester United, they need to keep winning to just ensure the top 4. It's now in their hands. I think they're going to beat Southampton, and I think they're going to beat Crystal Palace as well. I'm going to go for a simple little 2-0 away win to Manchester United. Now, the next game, it was a tough one. Southampton up against Brighton. Brighton, they did just get absolutely demolished by Manchester City, and they did obviously lose to Liverpool the week before, but it's tough to judge them based on those performances. Southampton, I predicted that they lost to Manchester United, but as I said, we don't know, and the week before, they got a good 1-1 draw away at Everton. So, I'm going to give Southampton the edge. I'm going to give them the 2-1 home win. I think over 2.5 goals in this one is actually quite safe because Brighton, I think they'll score a goal, but I think Southampton, I just think 2-1. It makes sense in my head. I'm going to go for Southampton to win this one 2-1. And then the final prediction of the week is going to be West Ham up against Watford. Watford, they're faltering a little bit. I think that they're most likely safe from relegation, but as of right now and going into this game, West Ham are looking better. They're looking more like scoring goals. So I'm going to go for a West Ham home win, and I'm going to go for another 2-1. So that is going to do it for this week's prediction. So I have Chelsea to win, Burnley and Wolves to draw, City to win, Newcastle to beat Tottenham, little surprise result there, Arsenal Liverpool draw, another surprise result in my opinion, Everton to win, Leicester Sheffield draw, Man United, Southampton and West Ham all to win. So I've chucked in a few, rogue predictions in there with the hopes that maybe it boosts my overall performance. So as always, leave your predictions down in the comments below, leave a like if you enjoyed. Let's break 200 likes once again. Subscribe so you don't miss another video. And I will see you in the next one very soon.